They say time heals all wounds, but what they never tell you is this: sometimes time doesn't heal, it breaks. And the one who walked away thinking they didn't need you, time will be their greatest punishment. There comes a time in life when silence becomes your greatest weapon. Not because you have nothing to say, but because your silence says everything. Words can be twisted, argued, denied, but silence is undeniable. When you stop explaining, stop defending, stop begging for someone to see your worth, you shift the balance of power. Suddenly, the weight of your absence becomes louder than any sentence you could ever speak, and the person who thought they had control, they begin to hear that silence in ways you can't even imagine. Think about it. When people walk away, when they dismiss you, when they think they've won, the first thing they expect is a reaction. They expect anger, arguments, or desperate attempts to pull them back. They expect proof that you still care. But when you give them nothing, when you respond with silence instead of words, patience instead of panic, calm instead of chaos, that's when the tables turn, because silence forces them to sit with themselves. It forces them to face the truth they were trying to avoid, and the truth is this: they didn't just walk away from you, they walked away from the very best thing that could have ever happened to them. Silence doesn't mean weakness. In fact, it takes strength to stay silent when everything inside of you wants to scream. It takes discipline to withhold words when your pride wants to fight back, but that silence, it works in your favor. Because words may satisfy in the moment, but silence lasts much longer. Words are forgotten, but silence lingers, it haunts them. It plays back in their mind during quiet nights. It reminds them that they're no longer important enough to even deserve your voice. And in that realization, the seed of regret begins to grow. And here's the beauty of silence: it allows time to work for you. The more days that pass without your words, the more your silence echoes. At first, they might feel relief, thinking your silence means you're gone. But then, slowly, the silence becomes too loud to ignore. They check their phone, but nothing. They wait for the message, but it never comes. They start wondering if you've moved on, and that wondering turns into missing. That missing turns into regret, and regret is the sharpest pain silence can deliver. Silence also shifts focus back to you. Instead of wasting energy on chasing or explaining yourself, you invest that energy into growth. You use the silence to heal, to build, to rise. You turn your silence into power, into progress, into peace. And while you're moving forward, they're stuck in the past, trapped in the silence you left behind. You see, silence doesn't just break them. It frees you. It frees you from the endless cycle of proving your worth to people who were blind to it. It frees you from battles that were never meant to be yours. And in that freedom, you discover something priceless. You never needed to say another word to prove who you are. So remember this: silence is not the absence of communication. It is the strongest form of communication. It tells them, you no longer have access to my energy. You no longer get the privilege of my voice. You no longer deserve the explanation you once thought you were entitled to. And trust me, there will come a day when they hear that silence louder than any words you could have spoken. Because silence, my friend, has a way of screaming the truth they never wanted to face. Time is the greatest teacher, the most honest judge, and the sharpest mirror. In the beginning, people take things for granted. They overlook kindness, they undervalue loyalty, they underestimate love. They think what you gave them came cheap because you gave it freely. But here's the truth: time has a way of stripping away illusions and exposing reality. And the longer time goes on, the clearer it becomes. What they thought was ordinary was extraordinary, and what they thought they could replace was one of a kind. At first, they may feel powerful walking away. They may convince themselves that life will be better, that someone else will give them what you gave, that they won't feel your absence. But time has a funny way of testing those assumptions. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly the truth reveals itself. That newness wears off, that temporary distraction fades, and in the quiet moments, when there's nothing left to mask the emptiness, they realize just how much of their joy, their peace, their strength was tied to you. See, time is patient. It doesn't rush the lesson. It doesn't force realization overnight. It lets people live their decisions, walk in their choices, and taste the reality of the path they picked. And the longer they live without you, the sharper the contrast becomes. They start to compare without even wanting to. They measure what they have now against what they once had with you, and every day that passes, the scales tilt heavier in your favor, because real value doesn't fade with time, it shines brighter. Think about it like this. Gold doesn't lose its worth just because someone throws it away. Diamonds don't become worthless because someone failed to recognize their sparkle. The value remains. It's the perception that changes. And sooner or later, time forces people to confront that truth. The very same love they dismissed becomes the love they crave. The very same energy they rejected becomes the energy they miss. And the very same presence they took for granted becomes the presence they can't stop remembering. But here's the beauty. You don't have to remind them. You don't have to prove them wrong. You don't have to say a word. Time does it for you. Time whispers in their loneliness. Time speaks in their regrets. Time shouts in their empty nights. And with every tick of the clock, with every day of silence, with every moment of absence, time reveals the undeniable truth. You were never the one who lost. They were. And while time is revealing your value to them, it's also revealing your value to you. Because the longer you stand in your silence, the more you grow into your strength. The longer you resist the urge to chase, the more you discover your own worth. You start to see that their inability to recognize your value was never about you. It was about them. And when that truth sinks in, something powerful happens. You stop waiting for their recognition because you've already given it to yourself. So understand this. Time doesn't just reveal your value to others. It reveals your value to you. And once you see it, once you own it, once you walk in it, you'll never lower yourself again. You'll never beg for a seat at a table you built. You'll never shrink to fit inside a life too small for you. You'll let time do its work, because you know, without a shadow of a doubt, your value only grows with time. Sometimes the loudest thing in the room isn't a voice. It isn't words. It isn't sound. Sometimes the loudest thing is absence. Because when you're gone, when your energy is no longer in their space, when your love is no longer available at their fingertips, your absence becomes a constant reminder of what they lost. And the longer you stay gone, the more powerful your presence becomes. People often don't realize the weight of your presence until it's no longer there. When you were around, they overlooked it. They got comfortable with it. They assumed it would always be there. But absence flips the script. Absence is a teacher, a mirror, a spotlight. It makes people feel what they refuse to see. Your laughter, your conversations, your encouragement, your warmth. Suddenly, those things aren't background noise anymore. They're memories, memories that play over and over, louder with each passing day. See, presence is something people get used to, but absence is something they can't escape. It follows them into their quiet moments. It slips into their thoughts when they least expect it. It shows up in the empty spaces of their life. Absence has a way of haunting the heart because it reminds them of what can't be replaced. They can try to fill it with distractions, with new people, with temporary escapes, but none of it works. The truth is, absence exposes what presence once covered. At first, they might not feel it. They might even celebrate your absence, thinking it's freedom, thinking it's relief. But freedom without value is emptiness. Relief without foundation is temporary, and when the noise dies down, when the distractions fade, they'll realize something is missing, something only you brought into their world. That's the power of absence. It doesn't just leave a gap. It creates a presence so strong it can't be ignored. And here's the part most people don't understand. Absence doesn't weaken your power, it multiplies it. Because the less available you are, the more valuable you become. Scarcity creates demand. Silence creates curiosity. Absence creates presence. Your decision to walk away, to stay silent, to no longer be accessible, transforms you into something unforgettable. They might not have respected your presence, but they'll never escape your absence. But don't get it twisted. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about sitting back, waiting for them to come crawling. No, this is about you stepping fully into your worth. Your absence gives them space to feel the consequences of their choices. But more importantly, it gives you space to reclaim your energy, to rebuild your spirit, to grow without interruption. While they're haunted by your absence, you're empowered by it. You're reminded that your presence was a gift, not a guarantee. So understand this. Every time you remove yourself from a place where you're not valued, your absence becomes your presence. Your silence becomes your voice. Your distance becomes your strength. And sooner or later, whether they admit it or not, they will feel it. They will feel you in the empty moments, in the quiet nights, in the spaces where your presence once stood. That's the law of absence. It doesn't erase you, it amplifies you. Growth is the one thing they never expect from you after they walk away. They expect to see you broken. They expect to hear that you're struggling. They expect to find you stuck in the same place, replaying the same pain, waiting for their return. But nothing cuts deeper, nothing speaks louder, nothing burns brighter than when you rise higher than they ever imagined. Your growth becomes the reminder they can't run from. When you focus on yourself, when you invest in your mind, your body, your spirit, you shift the story. They thought your life revolved around them, but your growth proves otherwise. Every new step you take, every new level you reach, every new success you claim, it whispers to them, "You weren't my whole world. You were only a chapter." And that whisper is more powerful than any words of anger you could have thrown at them. Growth is undeniable. They can ignore your calls, they can block your number, they can distance themselves physically, but they can't ignore the person you're becoming. They'll see it in your confidence. They'll hear it in your silence. They'll feel it in your energy. And if life brings them close enough, they'll see it with their own eyes. The glow, the strength, the unstoppable version of you that was born out of their absence. And that reality, it stings. Because here's the truth. Your growth shines a spotlight on their stagnation. While you're leveling up, they're still in the same cycles, chasing the same distractions, running from the same emptiness. And every time they look at you, every time they hear about your progress, every time they realize you've become more without them, it forces them to confront their own lack of progress. Your success becomes their mirror. And what they see in that mirror isn't just you, it's everything they failed to be. But let's make one thing clear. Your growth isn't about them. It's not about proving them wrong. It's not about rubbing your progress in their face. No, Your growth is about you stepping into the version of yourself you were always meant to be. They were just the catalyst. Their absence was the spark that lit your fire. And while they're haunted by what they lost, you're blessed by what you've gained: clarity, resilience, self-respect, and vision. So every time you rise, remember this: you don't need revenge, you don't need closure, you don't need their recognition. Your growth is the only reminder they'll ever get, and it's the kind of reminder they can't escape, because while they sit in regret, you're out there building, thriving, succeeding. And with each passing day, your growth becomes a living testimony of what happens when you stop chasing people and start chasing purpose. So keep building, keep growing, keep shining, not to hurt them, but to heal you. Because your growth will speak for itself, and whether they admit it or not, deep down they'll always know. The moment they let you go was the moment they lost the greatest opportunity of their life. Patience is not weakness. Patience is not passivity. Patience is power. It's the discipline to sit still when everything inside of you wants to react. It's the strength to remain silent when pride pushes you to speak. It's the wisdom to trust time when your heart demands answers now. Patience is the quiet confidence that says, I don't need to chase, I don't need to prove, I don't need to rush. What's meant for me will never pass me by. The truth is, people expect impatience from you. They expect you to fight for their attention, to demand closure, to show them you're hurting. They expect impulsive calls, emotional texts, desperate attempts to pull them back. But when you respond with patience instead of panic, when you allow silence to stretch instead of filling it with noise, that's when the power shifts. Because patience unsettles the ones who thought you couldn't live without them. Patience doesn't mean you're waiting for them to come back. It means you're letting time work on your behalf. You understand that revenge doesn't come from anger, it comes from growth. Justice doesn't come from chasing, it comes from letting life expose the truth. And time is the most faithful partner you could ever have. Because while you're patiently healing, patiently building, patiently rising, time is patiently reminding them of who you were, what you gave, and what they lost. See, impatience costs energy. It drains you. It ties you to people who already walked away. But patience conserves energy. It fuels you. It releases you to focus on yourself instead of them. And in that stillness, in that discipline, you find something priceless: peace. Peace that doesn't depend on their words, their actions, or their return. Peace that comes from knowing you don't need to chase what's already gone. And here's what's powerful: patience doesn't just protect your peace, it multiplies your impact. Because while they're out there chasing instant gratification, you're building long-term foundations. While they're distracted by temporary pleasures, you're investing in permanent growth. While they're looking for quick fixes, you're becoming unshakable. And by the time they realize what they've lost, you've already risen to heights they can't reach. That's the reward of patience. So don't confuse stillness with weakness. Don't confuse silence with surrender. Every day you choose patience. You're winning battles they don't even see. You're letting time carry the weight you don't need to carry. You're letting absence do the speaking you don't need to do. You're letting life deliver the justice you don't need to seek. And in the end, your patience becomes undeniable proof of your strength. So stand firm, stay patient, let them wonder, let them wrestle with silence, let them discover the cost of their decisions through the passage of time. Because patience is not about waiting for their return, it's about refusing to waste your energy on their absence. Patience is knowing that the strongest storms are weathered by those who don't break, who don't rush, who don't fold under pressure. And you are unshakable Because patience, my friend, is power. There is no revenge more powerful, no closure more complete, no justice more satisfying than progress. Progress is the ultimate victory. Not because it proves them wrong with words, but because it shows them the truth with results. You don't need to argue, you don't need to explain, you don't need to convince. Your progress does all the talking for you. They thought you would crumble without them. They thought you would be lost, stuck, and broken. But instead, you turned the pain into fuel. Instead, you turned the silence into strategy. Instead, you took every tear, every doubt, every scar, and used it to build a stronger, wiser, more unshakable version of yourself. That's progress. And nothing burns them more than seeing you succeed in places they never believed you could. Because here's the truth, progress is undeniable. They can ignore your calls, they can block you online, they can pretend you don't exist, but they can't ignore your glow. They can't deny your success. They can't silence your transformation. Every time they hear your name, every time they see your face, every time someone else celebrates what you've become, it cuts deep. Because your progress reminds them that leaving you was the greatest mistake of their life. But progress isn't about them, it's about you. It's about refusing to stay in the place where they left you. It's about proving to yourself that you are bigger than heartbreak, stronger than rejection, and tougher than disappointment. Progress says, I will not stay broken. I will not live bitter. I will not shrink myself to fit someone else's comfort. Progress says, I choose to rise. And progress isn't just about material success. It's about emotional healing. It's about mental strength. It's about spiritual growth. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need their validation, their approval, or their presence to thrive. Because once you reach that place, once you realize your joy no longer depends on them, you've already won. That's victory. See, people expect you to fail. They expect you to stay stuck. They expect your story to end with them. But progress flips the script. Progress rewrites the ending. Progress says, my story is just beginning and you were only a chapter. And every new level you reach, every new goal you crush, every new horizon you step into becomes living proof that they didn't break you, they built you. They didn't stop you, they started you. They didn't define you, they refined you. So don't waste your energy looking back. Don't waste your nights wondering if they regret it. Don't waste your power waiting for them to notice. Just keep moving forward, keep building, keep healing, keep growing, because progress is the kind of victory that speaks louder than any words you could ever say. And in the end, while they sit in regret, you'll be standing in success. While they replay the past, you'll be creating the future. While they're haunted by what they lost, you'll be living proof of what they'll never have again. That's why progress is the ultimate victory, because it doesn't just prove them wrong, it proves you right. It proves that you were always stronger than they thought, always greater than they believed, always destined for more than they could ever give you. And when your progress speaks, there is no debate, no denial, no defense. The truth is written in your rise, so let them go, let them doubt, let them underestimate you, because in the silence, in the distance, in the waiting, time is working, absence is speaking, growth is shining. Patience is proving, and progress is shouting the truth louder than you ever could. You don't need to fight for validation. You don't need to beg for recognition. You don't need to chase anyone who couldn't see your worth. Stand still, stand tall, stand proud, because every second that passes, every moment they live without you, every day your light shines brighter. The more it hurts them and the more it heals you. The longer they go without you, the more they'll feel the truth. You were never the one who lost. They were, you didn't need them to make you. You only needed time to reveal you. And now the world will see what they were too blind to recognize. Your silence is strength, your absence is presence, your patience is power, and your progress is victory.